It was Passover. That's how the story begins. It was Passover. You might remember it. For my people, for us, it was the highest and holiest day of the year. Do you remember the story? We were slaves in Egypt. We were slaves under the hand of the mightiest man and the mightiest empire the world had ever seen. We were slaves. We didn't have names, we had numbers. Have you ever been a number? Numbers don't have stories. Numbers don't have imaginations. Numbers can't dream or vision. We weren't human beings, we were human doings. Numbers, slaves. When one of us gave birth to a child, no one cheered. You don't cheer for the birth of a number. And when one of our older folks died, no one wept. There was no funeral. You don't mourn the loss of a number. We were numbers. No future. Hopeless, helpless in Egypt. But somewhere far, far away, there was a shepherd named Moses who was one day out tending his sheep. And while he was tending his sheep, he noticed a bush that was burning off in the distance. Moses went to check out the bush, and while the bush was burning, it was not consumed. From the bush came a voice, and the voice from the bush called to Moses, "Moses, here I am," he said. And what God said to Moses started the movement. Do you remember what God said to Moses? God said, "I know they're suffering. I know it." He didn't just mean He knew about it. He didn't just mean that He had read about it in the paper. He meant that He knew it. That everything we had felt, He had felt. Every tear, every fear, every hopeless situation, He knew it as well. I know they're suffering. And so God sent Moses back to Egypt, where there was a collision of powers. God, empire. Moses, Pharaoh. There in Egypt, Pharaoh's policies of death came to fruition. It was one thing after another, hell on earth. And in some inexplicable way, God freed us from the Egyptians. Liberation. We didn't do it, God did it. We left Egypt, we're on our way to the Promised Land. We marched all the way out to the Red Sea. Little did we know that Pharaoh had changed his mind and his hordes were coming in from behind. Do you remember that? There we stood with those eternal, perpetual waves lapping at our feet. We couldn't move forward. And under our feet, the ground vibrated with the encroaching Egyptian army coming from behind. Suicide to go forward, homicide to turn around. And yet, somehow, God made a way where there seemed to be no way. He parted the Red Sea, and there we walked on dry ground through the Red Sea with not so much as one sandal getting wet. And when the waters collapsed behind us on the other side, we stood there with mouths agape, wondering at what we had just beheld. There are times in life where it's not about formulas or theologies or explanations. There are times in life where you just sing. There are times in life where you just dance. You praise. Jubilation. And so there on the shores of the Red Sea, we sang and danced and praised. From that point on, We journeyed with God. What we discovered was that God is not just the God of miraculous deliverance, but God is also the God of mundane, daily provision. The same God who parted the Red Sea also gave us daily bread. When we were hungry in the wilderness, there was manna from heaven and quail. When we were thirsty, water came from a rock. And then at Sinai, out in the wilderness, God made a covenant with us, a partnership with us. We were in this together. And God said, I will foster life and blessing and goodness amongst you so that you can in turn go and do the same for all the nations, to bless, to love, to foster life and goodness. And so every year we remembered this at the Passover. We remembered what our God had done. To God be the glory. Great things He has done. That's how our story begins today. It begins with Passover. Luke 22, 14 to 27. When the time came, Jesus and the apostles sat down together at the table. Jesus said, I have been very eager to eat this Passover meal with you before my suffering begins. Did you hear that? I have been very eager to eat this Passover meal with you before my suffering begins. For I tell you now that I won't eat this meal again until its meaning is fulfilled in the kingdom of God. Then He took a cup of wine and gave thanks to God for it. And He said, take this and share it amongst yourselves. For I will not drink wine again until the kingdom of God has come. He took some bread and gave thanks for it. And then He broke it in pieces and gave it to the disciples, saying, this is my body which is given for you. Do this to remember me. After supper, He took another cup of wine and said, this cup is the new covenant between God and His people, an agreement confirmed with my blood, which is poured out as a sacrifice for you. But here, at this table, sitting among us as a friend, is the man who will betray me. For it has been determined that the Son of Man must die. But what sorrow awaits the one who betrays Him? The disciples began to ask each other which of them would do such a thing. Then they began to argue among themselves about who would be the greatest among them. Jesus told them, in this world, the kings and the great men lord it over their people, yet they are called friends of the people. But among you it will be different. Those who are the greatest among you should take the lowest rank, and the leader should be like a servant. Who is more important, the one who sits at the table or the one who serves? The one who sits at the table, of course, but not here. I am among you as one who serves. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. And it began with Passover. This is about suffering. Suffering. Hurts just to say it out loud, doesn't it? Suffering. I can no longer see this cup and not think about suffering. I can no longer see any cup and not think about suffering. I can no longer see this bread and not think about suffering. I can no longer see any bread without thinking about suffering. We gathered at the table that night, and Jesus said, I have longed, eagerly desired, to eat this meal with you before I suffer. Suffer. And then He took the bread. And He said, this is my body broken for you. Broken. And then He took the cup. And He said, this cup is the new covenant in my blood, poured out for you, for many. Blood, broken body. This is about suffering. I've come to believe that there are really only two ways for any human being to really open up. For any human being to open themselves to a greater reality in any significant way. I think there's only two ways. One is through love. True love. Profound love. Has a way of opening a person up to things they never thought before. Places they never thought they'd go before. And not just love, suffering. Suffering can open a person up. Suffering removes the illusion that a person is in control. Doesn't remove the fact that a person is in control. It removes the illusion that they ever were in control. You can be the epitome of a type A person. But when you go to the doctor's office and the doctor says, I'm sorry, but you have cancer. Doc, what do I do? Well, it's cancer. It's bad. You can be a go-getter, tackle life by the horns. But when you stand in that cold cemetery and the cold north wind whips through your overcoat, there by the grave of someone you love who died too soon. God, what do I do? Or when the boss knocks on your door and says, hey, I'd like to see you in my office. You've worked there for 34 years. Your life is tied up there. Your future is tied up there. No more. Suffering removes the illusion that we're the ones running the show. Suffering removes the illusion that we are in control of our lives. To be sure, we've all seen people who were hardened by suffering. They had to get hard to survive it. Their soul had to ossify. Their heart had to calcify. Their mind had to harden just to get through it. Suffering hardens some people, but other people, deep people, they internalize it. And it broadens them. It makes them bigger, softer people. Some people ignore their suffering through busyness. Let's just keep active. Go, 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 go. Remove any possibility of a quiet moment where you would have to rest in the depths of your soul. Just keep busy. Look at your calendar. Some people numb it. There are 1,000 ways you can numb your suffering, none of which actually deal with it. Some people deny the existence of suffering, especially God's people. Some people deny suffering with fake smiles on their faces and religious platitudes and, happy faces. But occasionally, someone will enter suffering. Occasionally, someone will actually engage it in the depths of what it is. They will experience the fullness of it, and it will profoundly change them. It will open them up to a transcendent reality. If I'm not running the show, who is? If I'm not in control of my life, who is? Oftentimes, suffering releases a type A person's grip on their life, and therefore, for the very first time in their life, they can actually receive life from God rather than try to grasp it over and over and over again. Sometimes, suffering reminds us of our frail humanity. It reminds us that we're not God. And that might be the best news of all. It's hard to be God. It's even harder for you and I to be God. Maybe in the end, on that last day, maybe in the end what we will discover is that love and suffering are really the same thing at heart. There is a way to prevent suffering in your life. There is a way. You can do that. Just cut off everyone else. Don't care about anything. Don't love anything. Let your soul, heart, mind calcify and ossify, and you will not suffer. But you will dry up for lack of love. Maybe love and suffering are the same thing. Do you remember how the Exodus began? When God said, I know they're suffering. Do you think that it's possible for God to have cried a few tears on His pillow at night? Do you think God was really in it with them? When the old man died, do you think God went to his funeral? Or when that baby was born that nobody even noticed, number 312, God celebrated the birth of that baby? I know they're suffering. The day after the meal, Jesus did indeed suffer on the cross, profoundly. For most of my life, I have heard that Jesus suffered because He was representing sinful humanity before God. It's probably true. But what if the converse is also true? What if Jesus was suffering not so much because He was representing a broken humanity before God? What if Jesus was suffering because He was illustrating a suffering God with humanity? I don't know. All I know is to eat this bread and to drink from this cup is to welcome the way of Jesus into your life. And that way is a way of suffering, because that way is a way of love. Deep, eternal, abiding love. And so we ate. And after supper, a dispute arose. I'm embarrassed to say this. A dispute arose at that table over who among us was the greatest. I know it sounds funny to talk about love and sacrifice and suffering and at the same table have an argument over who was the greatest, but we were arguing over who was the greatest. I mean, is there anything wrong with wanting to be the greatest? Don't you, deep down inside, want to be the greatest? What's wrong with being the greatest? Do you remember who was sitting at that table? Judas was sitting at that table. Judas. He had already betrayed Jesus for money. I would make fun of Judas. I would. Except I've learned that when most of us betray Jesus, we do so with money. Money is one of those ways in which we insulate ourselves from God and from each other. Who needs God when you have money? Who needs daily bread when you have Kroger? Who needs hope for the future when you're thoroughly invested in your 401k? Who needs a neighbor when you have everything you need? Money has a way of shrinking God down to a size where God's tolerable and just blesses our souls real pretty like and that sort of thing. Money also insulates us from the world around us. Money can cause us to be blind to the people around us who are really hurting. We can begin to think that we earned it all. Everything that we have, we earned. And everything that they don't have is because they didn't. After all, it's about me and them and not us. Money's taught us that. Money can cause us to turn people into things and things into people. Money can cause us to objectify people, turn them into a commodity, and personify things as if they're worthy of our love. Judas was there. He had betrayed Jesus for money. And Peter was there. Do you remember Peter? It's not what Peter had done, it's what he was about to do. Do you know what Peter did before that night was over? Peter denied Jesus. Judas betrayed him. Peter denied him. First, he followed Jesus from a distance, which is how most of us follow Jesus if we follow Him at all, from a distance. Don't you follow from a distance? Usually I follow Jesus because I want to be in His number until He asks something of me that I have no intention of giving. Until He turns right when I thought we were going left. Until Jesus asks a sacrifice of me that I'm unwilling to grant. Many of us follow Jesus from a distance. Peter followed Him into the courtyard and tried to sneak off into the crowd under the cover of darkness. And there a slave girl. Jesus is inside with Pilate answering questions. Peter's outside being interrogated by a slave girl. Aren't you with him? No. Don't know him. Never known him. 3 times. It was fear. It was fear that caused Peter to deny Jesus. It was fear that brought out the worst in Peter. And it's fear that brings out the worst in all of us. Fear. Do you know what the most important phrase in the Exodus account was? The thing God kept saying over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Don't fear. Judas was there, and Peter was there, and the rest of us were there. I was there. Somebody said, well, I've been to synagogue school before. I know the Scriptures. Somebody said, well, I pray more than the rest of you scoundrels. It's got to be me. Someone said, I started the food pantry in Cana. It's me. I was there. And you were there. You may not think so. You may not remember it. But if you think really hard, if you go back to the deep recesses of your mind, I bet you can remember being there. Because Jesus took the bread and the cup, and He said, as often as you eat this bread and drink from this cup, remember me. This bread and this cup, it's the same bread and it's the same cup. You were there. We were all arguing about who was the greatest. You know who else was there? Jesus was there. Who's greater? The one who sits at the table or the one who serves? You know the answer to that question. I know the answer to that question. The one who's sitting at the table. And yet I'm amongst you as one who serves. Do not be like the Gentiles, He said. Don't be like those other lords and kings. They lord it over their people. They overpower their people. They feel like they can accomplish the prerogatives of God through the objectives of empire. They feel like that if our coffers are full enough, if our bombs are big enough, if our fist is iron enough, we can accomplish our ways in the world. Don't be like the Gentiles. That's what Jesus said. But do you know what I heard when Jesus said that? What I heard was, don't be like the Egyptians. And it hit me. What Jesus was trying to do was to get us to live into the story we claimed. He wasn't so much telling us another story as much as He was getting us back to the heart of the story we had claimed all along. Every year we gathered at Passover to celebrate liberation from Egypt. Hooray! And yet what we had failed to realize was that Egypt still kind of had its grip on us. We had left Egypt long before Egypt had left us. God didn't just liberate us from Egypt as a place. God liberated us from the ways of Egypt. The ways that would turn names into numbers. The ways that would overpower people. The ways that would say might makes right. The ways that would operate out of fear rather than love. Jesus was trying to get us to live fully into that first story we told every year. And He was reminding us that you cannot achieve the end of the kingdom of God through the means of worldly empire. If you want the kingdom of God, really, if you want the kingdom of God, you can't policy people into it. You can't control people into it. You can't bomb people into it. You can't force people into it. If you really want the end of the kingdom of God, then your means are service and love. And until we understand those means, we'll be a long way away from that end. I am amongst you, He said, as one who serves. I know, it does not look good on a resume. I serve. Yeah, I get it. No one wins awards service. No one's on the front page of the Gazette for serving. And yet there He is. I am among you as one who serves. And He is. This is His meal and His table. And today He is the one who serves. He is the one who invites. He is. Are you amongst us as one who serves? That's the invitation. Do you really want the kingdom of God? Do you really want the way of Jesus? Then you are invited to His table, where everyone's a host and everyone's a servant, including Him.